The Canadian government, the very same one that declared a climate emergency, flew over 200 people, including people from private industry, across the world to the UN Climate Change Conference in Scotland late last year. It was too unsafe for you to have Christmas. But over 200 people could have their fancy annual climate scare party, and you paid for it all. Today, I'll show you the order paper response, where I got this information, and some of the peculiar names on this list. Do you remember when Canada's House of Commons declared a national climate emergency? Oh, friends, it's such a climate emergency that you need extra taxes on everything. And the world is going to end in 12 or 10 or 8 years, or whenever that little teenage truant climate scold Greta Thunberg tells us we're all done for.
How dare you?
And the COVID emergency, it's so deadly that you can't travel, you can't see your elderly parents, your kids have to wear masks for 7 hours a day in school. Oh, and all their sports are canceled too. And yet the fancy people, they can jet set across the Atlantic and take all their fancy friends with them and wine and dine for 2 weeks straight in Scotland, while those dirty SUV drivers like me, that they're busy vilifying in Scotland as planet murderers, well, we get the pleasure of paying for it all. Yes, friends, we're talking about the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, Scotland this past November. I've personally attended these conferences in the past, and they are the biggest waste of money I've ever laid eyes on. And the hypocrisy, oh, the hypocrisy. The acres of idling cars and buses, the garbage, the people with no real clue why they're even there, but they just know in their bones that climate is bad and things are changing. My skepticism about the UN Climate Change Conference is why they banned me from the conference, well, that and a little pressure from the Canadian government too. But thanks to an order paper question asked by Conservative MP Rosemary Falk, I can tell you exactly how many people were on the latest government climate junket and their names. I'll post the documents online so you can take a look at them for yourself. By my calculations, there were 211 people on the official federal government climate change junket to Glasgow, and not all of them were government employees. There was a carbon ton of private sector and financial institution people, all of whom should have been paying their own way, and a plethora of union leaders whose unions should have been footing the bill for their travel. Definitely not the Canadian taxpayer. For example, there's Bertram Blunden of the National Union of Public and General Employees. There's Nicholas Bossé from Brainbox AI. That's a private company. And if Nicholas wants to go to Glasgow, that's none of my business, and I shouldn't be paying for it. There's Charles Brindamore, the CEO of Intact Financial Corporation. Isabelle Bray. Now, this one is interesting because I had to Google, because as you'll see in these documents, they don't try to describe who and what she is or what her role is on the trip to Glasgow. She's the wife of Quebec Premier François Legault, who clearly wasn't there in any capacity indicated. The government who organized this trip didn't even bother trying to fabricate a reason for why the Canadian public paid for the trip to Glasgow of the wife of the Quebec Premier. There's David Hutchins, the CEO of Fortis, and Ahmad Idris from Capital Power. There's Vince Gasborough of Van City Community Investment Bank. There's Martin Imblo of the Montreal Port Authority. More union activists. There's Karen Littlewood of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation. Susan McGeechee of the Bank of Montreal Climate Institute. Did you know that BMO had a climate institute? I didn't, but I don't want to pay for this lady's trip. Let BMO pay for it. There's Tara Peel from the Canadian Labour Congress. There's Patrick Rondeau, a Quebec trade union advisor. There's another one, Larry Rousseau of the Canadian Labour Congress, and Sari Sarainen of UNIFOR. Anyway, I will publish these documents so you can read them for yourself. You don't have to take my word for anything. Now, currently, the bill for all these people to have a Glasgow vacay with other climate worrywarts is sitting at $1.07 million, including $172,000 in airfare alone and another $41,500 for ground transportation. Pretty carbon intensive for people who like to tell me that my SUV will spell the end of all life as we know it. And this isn't quite the full damage yet. I'll check back for the total bill in the coming weeks. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. The information in today's story came to us by way of an order paper question asked by a Conservative MP. However, following up to get the final tally for the bill for the climate change conference, that's going to require an access to information request. And that takes time and it costs money. If you'd like to support our investigative journalism, please consider a donation at a special website. It's at rebelinvestigates.com.